All right. Well, welcome in, everyone. Welcome in, welcome back. Welcome to your first, second, third, wherever you're at. Welcome to the Family Friday webinar series. I hope everyone had a great week and a nice little bye week last week. We are back with the second leg of our Family Friday summer webinar series, starting with advising and registration. Your student has registered for a pre-registration advising appointment and may have already met with an advisor. These virtual appointments help your student plan their fall schedule. Today, we have a team of advising experts here to walk you through what advising looks like here at Emory, how your student can prepare for registration, and important dates and reminders to keep in mind as August approaches. So as always, our entire Family Friday webinar schedule is on our website, family.emory.edu. We record every single webinar and post it to YouTube afterwards, so you can go back and view your previous webinar if you've missed it or you want to go back and review the information. So again, that is all at family.emory.edu, and you can go to the events tab to view that information. So today, like I said, we have two presenters and a multitude of people from advising in the chat to support you in all of your questions. I know advising registration is a hot topic. And so today we have Bridget and Victoria here to speak to y'all about advising registration at Emory. And if you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A. We have people in the chat answering questions, and we'll also be answering questions out loud as well. So on that note, I am going to turn it over to Bridget and Victoria.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Victoria Velkel. I'm an academic advisor in the Office of Undergraduate Education, and I work with domestic students.
Hey everyone, my name is Bridget. I am also an advisor in the Office of Undergraduate Education, and I also work with domestic students. Let me go to next, yeah.
So today we're going to cover a lot of information about advising, registration, and graduation requirements for your students. Some of the things we're going to look at is the different type of advising that we offer both in our office and across campus, ways that you can assist your student in preparing for registration, as well as the different registration appointments. And we're going to do a brief overview of our general education requirements that are going to help your student progress towards graduation. And then also some of the more detailed information about our actual registration process during add drop swap in August.
Okay, so let's start off with looking at what advising looks like at Emory University. So your student will have an entire network of advising support when they come over here in August, and all students in Emory College will have an assigned OUE advisor. That is the Office of Undergraduate Education. Both me and Victoria, again, are our OUE advisors, and our goal is really to get to know each of our students, their academic goals and interests, and help them with things like registration and course planning, finding a major that suits them and that they're interested in, helping them get to the graduation checkpoint, and also refer them to other campus resources as needed. And one other thing I want to note is that, like Karina mentioned, is students have already started meeting with an OUE advisor for their pre-registration advising appointment, their PRA. We started those just a couple of days ago, and they're going to go until August 9th. So if your student hasn't made that appointment yet, make sure they go ahead and do so. They've already received the link in their email. So that will be their first contact with an OUE advisor, and they'll continue to meet with their assigned OUE advisor regularly during their time here at Emory.
So in addition to their OUE advisor, we have multiple resources across campus that are here to assist your student, both with registration and advising, as well as different success programs. So we do have specialized advising for different communities on campus, whether that's pre-health, pre-business, or if students have an interest in our dual degree engineering program with Georgia Tech. We have advisors in place across campus that are going to be able to assist them with navigating those different prerequisites and how to register for the appropriate courses to meet any requirements that they may have for those specific communities and programs of interest. In addition, we also have a team of staff members who are there to assist students in their academic success. So we have an academic success programs office as well that coordinate things like tutoring, learning assistance, coachings for multiple different classes. This can be anything from time management to actually content of specific courses. And so we do have a number of ways that students can engage with resources on campus to ensure that they are being successful in their academic courses here at Emory. We also have major advisors. So as in addition to their OUE staff advisor that students are assigned, once their majors are declared after the start of their or after the end of their first semester, they will be assigned a faculty advisor or major advisor within the department. And they're going to be there to help them select their actual major classes and make sure that they're progressing through their required major courses heading towards graduation. In addition, if students aren't quite sure of their career choices or their majors, we have a great resource that students can work with in our Career and Professional Development Office to help them navigate potential career options and major selection once they arrive here at Emory as well.
Awesome. So let's talk about some summer registration support, some things that you can look into over the summer before registration starts in August. So obviously there's the Emory Welcome app, which both parents and students can have on their phone or on any tablets or anything like that. So this is an app for students and families. Like I just mentioned, it's accessible anytime, and it has some really helpful guides to the Emory campus, the Emory community, and also some really helpful to-do lists for students before they get here on campus in August, and some helpful guides and tips for registration as well. And there's obviously these specialized advising webinars. So these are our 1 hour virtual presentations. And like Karina mentioned, these are all recorded and will be posted on the Family Friday webinar website. So the Family Friday website. So if you miss one, you can always go back and watch it. So our different specialized advising offices, as well as some academic programs here in the OUE and Emory College, will be recording some videos and hosting some webinars that you can watch either live or go back and watch on the website. And then, like we mentioned before, that pre-registration advising appointment, really important for your student. So we started these appointments on July 10th, just 2 days ago, and they're going to run until August 9th. So it's important that your student goes ahead and schedules this appointment if they haven't already. And if they haven't, they have been sent a link via their email to schedule in the platform Navigate. It's really simple. And if your student has any issues scheduling their PRA, make sure they reach out to the Office of Undergraduate Education. But these are 1 hour virtual sessions with an OUE advisor and about 5 other incoming freshman students, just to welcome them to Emory, get them talking about classes and registration and all that fun stuff. So these are really just for students specifically to kind of get to know one another and start thinking about incoming in fall. And then on the registration, and on August 11th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have a registration webinar, which is really going to go over a lot of the stuff that was covered in the pre-registration advising appointment. So if you're a parent that kind of wants to know what was covered in the PRA, this is a really good opportunity to watch. It's again a 1 hour virtual presentation, and it's another good opportunity for students to get a quick refresher on some of the things that was covered in their PRA right before they register for classes.
Okay, so there are some things that your students need to make sure that they are doing in preparation for registration. This is in addition to their attendance of their PRA session. One of the really big things is to ensure that your student has submitted all of their AP and IB scores, as well as any previous college transcripts or dual enrollment credit that they may have. Sometimes we do need to make substitutions and swaps of what credits are applying to their program. And so the sooner that we can have these scores posted in the system, the easier it's going to be for us to assist your student when it comes to the registration process. That highlighted code right there is Emory's school code that can be used for submitting any AP credits or dual enrollment transcripts. So we want to make sure that the finalized, the most updated version of these transcripts has been submitted to our admissions office. We also highly recommend students explore department websites. Even if your student feels confident in what major they're wanting to explore or major in here at Emory, we do encourage students to explore a lot of the different websites and the different courses that are available. But prior to attending, there's a multitude of classes that they can register for that are going to meet their general education requirements. And we really encourage our students to explore some of these different departments before they arrive and register for classes. In addition, they can review and watch those specialized advising presentations if available, that was mentioned earlier. And then definitely using our course atlas to explore potential courses. Our course atlas is where we have our whole fall course schedule posted. Students can see what classes are available, what potential specialty subjects or topics that are going to be covered in that class, as well as know if there are any prerequisites that they need to make sure are on file or met prior to registration opening in August. So this is a really good way for students to get familiar with the courses that we do offer and start planning their potential schedule. As they are going through the course atlas, they can start adding these courses into their shopping cart through Opus. We do recommend that your students have between 25 and 30 open sections of classes in their shopping cart before registration opens on August 13th. So the sooner that they start looking at this, the better chances they have to create multiple possible schedules. We do recommend that they, keep an open mind, look outside of the box, try to explore some different subjects when they're building out their shopping cart so that they have a lot of flexibility when it actually comes to the registration, their registration time ticket in August. We also recommend that they start considering their language choice early, whether they are bringing in AP credit for a language or going to be starting a new language class. We do recommend that they start thinking about their language choice. And also if they have any intention of doing an education abroad program while they're here, already thinking about where they would want to be planning that into their college career as they're making their initial schedule for the fall semester.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and talk about those actual registration times. So students are going to first start registering on August 13th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're in a different time zone, take that into account. And it will stay open, registration will stay open until 11:59 p.m. that same night. So this is their first enrollment appointment. They can enroll in up to 8 credits on that first day. So they really want to prioritize what classes they add into their schedule based off of their interest and goals. So 8 credits usually looks maybe 2 to 3 classes. So again, really prioritizing those 2 to 3 classes based off of their interest. And then the second enrollment appointment is going to open up the very next day on August 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it will stay open until August 15th at 11:59 p.m. So this is where students are adding the rest of their classes, the rest of their credits, and kind of creating a full schedule. And again, we recommend that students register for at least 15 to 17 credits at this time. The minimum amount of credits they can register for is 12 to be considered a full-time student, and the maximum amount of credits they can register for as a first semester freshman is 19. And then of course there is add drop swap. So add drop swap is the time period when students, not just first years, can update their schedules in real time. So enrollment will open up for everyone at this time on August 27th, which is the day before classes, and stay open until September 11th. So this is a great time for students to attend their classes, see what works, see what doesn't. If they need to drop a class because their schedule is too heavy, or if a class isn't working out for them, or if a spot in a class opens up that they really want, they can swap for a different one or add a class of interest. So this is really where students are finalizing their schedule. Very rarely does a student get their ideal schedule during those first 3 days of enrollment, because they want to try out these classes during add drop swap, see what opens up and see what works for them during this time. And remember, everything counts towards graduation. So if your student doesn't get that one class that they really wanted that sounded really interesting, they have 4 other years to take it. And no class is unhelpful or unuseful, because everything will count towards their graduation goal. And one thing to really reassure your student is that registration is a process, not an event. One thing we try to impress the students is that they have time. They may see that some of the classes they want fill up fast, but remember, there's also add drop swap as well, where classes will be opening up seats. Some students will be swapping around seats. So again, there's plenty of time for your student to finalize a schedule that works for them.
Okay, so going over some of the basics of graduation requirements here at Emory. All students, regardless of their major, will complete at least 126 credit hours to graduate. This will include approximately 43 credit hours of general education requirements that are standardized across most majors. And we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail on the next slide. And then around 34 to 64 credits that apply towards their primary major. These are major specific classes. Sometimes they do fall within one department. Sometimes they may cover multiple departments, but they are the required classes for students to graduate within their specific major, declared major. The remaining classes would either be elective classes to hit that 126 hours, or they have the option of declaring a second major or a minor. We do want to stress that it is not a requirement or needed for students who are looking at graduate or professional programs to have a secondary major or minor, but it is something that they could consider depending on what their career goal is and how they want to focus those elective classes. We do really want your students to explore within those GREs and then also for the major selection. We want them to think about different options and different opportunities when it comes to what major they declare and the path that they take through Emory towards graduation. Because of this, one of the things that we do not allow is students are not allowed to declare their major during their first semester. So the soonest that your student would be able to declare their major would be the spring semester of their freshman year. Students still have time after that to make adjustments to their major or minor if things change as they get into these upper level classes. But the soonest that they would be able to actually declare any major is going to be the spring of their freshman year. And like we said before, students should aim for around 15 to 17 credits to stay on track to graduate within 4 years. And that's going to be around 4 to 5 classes, depending on the credit hours, labs, and things of that sort that they may be adding to their schedule.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and go over those general education requirements that Victoria mentioned. So we refer to these as GERs. Your students will start referring to these as GERs throughout their time here at Emory. So these requirements are really to imbue students with a strong foundation in the liberal arts. And you'll see here at the top of this chart, it mentions that this is the blue plan for GERs. So Emory currently has 2 plans in place, the blue and the gold. So incoming freshmen and sophomores are on the blue plan, and juniors and seniors are on the gold plan, which is our old plan that we are cycling out for GERs. I only mention this because if your student has any questions about their GERs, they should always go to their OUE advisor, because sometimes they tend to ask upperclassmen and they have a different GER plan. So it's always good to avoid misinformation by asking your OUE advisor if you have any questions about GERs. And I'm going to go over this chart briefly, but really highlighting those first year GERs. So in the first year, you'll see that we break this chart up by category and then by year. Again, first year, we have the Success at Emory GERs, which we have ECS 101, which is really an introductory to Emory class and all the resources that Emory has to support your student. We have Health 100, which is teaching your college student how to stay healthy during college. And those 2 classes they will take in the fall semester of their first year. So they will register for a section of each of these this upcoming registration period. And then their PE, their physical education class, they can take in either the fall or spring of their freshman year. And then I'm going to jump down to these expression and communication GERs real quick. The first year seminar and first year writing, and again, are of course first year GERs. They can take them in either the fall or the spring, or take one in each. And then these exploration GERs, these we want ideally done by the end of a student's second year at Emory. We have a humanities and arts GER, a natural science GER, which is a science class, a quantitative reasoning, which is a math class, and a social science class. And then going down to the belonging and community, which is the purple row, your student will take a race and ethnicity class, and then intercultural communication is that language requirement. So they will take 2 courses of a consecutive language while they're here at Emory. And then the last GERs we have, again, under expression and communication, they will take 2 continuing communication classes, which are 2 upper level writing classes by the time they graduate. And they will take 1 experience and application class or have an experience that applies towards this GER. This can be a thing like a visual arts class, a music performance class, or it may be an internship. It can be undergraduate research, things like that.
Dean Oberens, do you want to take over this slide?
Happy to. Hi, everyone. There were a few questions about specialized advising in career communities in the chat, and thought it'd be easier really to talk about this live as well. So Victoria and Bridget have done a great job of outlining what our OUE, Office for Undergraduate Education, academic advisors do. Really, those are the generalists who are going to be with your students for 4 years. But we know some of your students, and students, if you're on here, some of you have some specialized paths that you're looking at. And so we do have specialized advising in these areas. These advisors are not typically assigned, but students can start meeting with them sometimes even this summer, but definitely as soon as they come to campus. And each of the websites will have directions for how students can make appointments or do drop-ins. So for our business, we have a dedicated pre-business advisor, but those are drop-in hours for those students. For health, we have a whole core of peer mentors and then also advisors that they get assigned alphabetically, so a little bit different. So each of these specialized advising areas has a little bit of a different process depending on who their staff is. All that to say, students can begin connecting with specialized advisors in the very beginning, and some even will have some open hours throughout the month of July and August as well. The career community coaches are also available to your students from the very beginning. There will be a webinar first week of August introducing what career communities are. Again, those are really broad industry sectors that capture just about every job or career out there. And so if students have an idea of what they think they want to do with a job or a career, or have no idea at all, they will meet with our career community coaches for that. And again, available at the very beginning. And we talk about all these different advising options within our ECS 101 class. So Bridget and Victoria mentioned all our students will be taking ECS 101 this fall. And it's an introduction to Emory and really how to be a college student. And we go through the details. So whether or not you know you want specialized advising from the very beginning, or if it pops up a little bit later, that is all okay. Everything works here. Did I get all the other Q&As from the chat? Karina, was there anything else that we wanted to ask or answer live with specialized advising right now? There was a question about linking up with the pre-business advisor. They will have a few open hours over the summer, but the best thing to do is to watch that pre-business specialized advising session that was done earlier this week. The recording's already posted in the Emory Welcome app and also on the orientation website. So that's the best thing to do for them.
Thank you, Sherry. So let's go over those key dates for fall 2024. Some of these I already mentioned, but again, AdDrop Swap will open on August 27th, which is the day before classes, and stay open until September 11th. So that's roughly about the first 2 weeks of classes. So students are able to attend their classes, again, see what works and what doesn't, and finalize their schedule. Again, August 28th is the first day of classes. September 2nd, Labor Day, there will be no classes that day for the holiday. And then October 1st is the extended drop deadline. So after September 11th, when AdDrop Swap ends, students won't be able to add any classes to their schedule or swap any classes around for their schedule. But on October 11th, from September 11th to October 1st, they can still drop classes. The last day they can drop a class again is October 1st. And then on October 30th, there's the partial withdrawal and grading basis change deadline. And a partial withdrawal means that a student can withdraw from one or more classes, but not all of their classes. And grading basis change means that a student could change a class to either being a letter grade, or they could change it to a pass-fail grade. And the last time they can do this, the deadline for this is October 30th. So let's say the extended drop deadline passes on October 1st. Your student can no longer drop a class after that. If they are struggling, always advise them to go talk with their OUE advisor, but they could always choose to withdraw from a class if that is what they choose before August 30th. And also they could choose to change the grading basis of a class as well. And then classes officially end on December 10th. Final exams will be December 12th through the 18th. This is something to keep in mind. Each student's final exam schedule will be different depending on their classes, but this is something both students and parents need to look at when they're planning their holiday travel schedules. Students cannot reschedule final exams, so they have to be there for their scheduled exams. So if you're flying your student home, make sure they're not missing a final. And then December 21st will be the official end of the term.
So we're offering a lot of different opportunities and support opportunities to your students when it comes to registration and add drop swap. So during the actual days of registration, August 13th through the 15th, we will be having drop-in advising from 10 a.m. To 12 p.m. And this is all going to be virtual. So students are going to be sent, and it's included in this presentation as well. Students are going to be sent a copy of the Zoom link to be able to our virtual reception desk. These are drop-in hours where they will be meeting with a staff advisor from the OUE. It's not necessarily their specific advisor because these aren't registered appointments, but there will be an advisor on call to be able to assist your student with any registration issues or questions. In addition, leading up to the start of add drop swap, and then also once add drop swap actually begins, we will be offering in-person and virtual drop-in hours again. So our in-person sessions will be in Candler Library, which is where our advising offices are located, from 2 to 5 on August 23rd, and then from 11 to 1 on the 25th. And then again, when add drop swap reopens on the 27th, we will do both in-person and virtual drop-in hours from 12 to 3 p.m. And then we're going to be hosting additional drop-in hours. Your student may end up hearing it called the VRD, where we will have the virtual reception desk being available for them to meet with an advisor throughout the add drop swap period ending in September. And then we also still offer drop-in hours outside of add drop swap. So if your student has any questions and they can't get an available appointment time, they're always welcome to drop in and speak with an advisor about any issues or questions that they may have. Do want to note these are usually for quicker questions, problem solving for a specific course or schedule. For anything that is going to be an extended conversation, we do recommend that they make an appointment with their advisor through Navigate so that they have dedicated time with their assigned advisor to really go into any issues or concerns that may be coming up.
Awesome. So let's really hammer home the goals of add drop swap. So again, it's very rare for a student to create their perfect schedule in those first 3 days of registration because they're going to go to classes, they're going to try them out during those 2 weeks of add drop swap. They may want to lighten up their course load or add an additional course that they were excited about that opened up. So this is the time where students are really finalizing their fall schedule during add drop swap. So if your student is nervous about those enrollment periods coming up, tell them not to worry. Registration is a process and not an event. And again, I'm going to mention again that we are encouraging students to aim for the range of 15 to 17 credits. Like Victoria mentioned, that's about 5 classes, give or take. And 15 to 17 credits will keep your student on track to graduate in the 4 years. And if your student ends up needing to withdraw from a class, if they are enrolled from 15 to 17 credits, this will keep them above the 12 minimum required credit hours to maintain that full-time student status. So that's important. And again, they're finding a good balance of courses and credits during this time, seeing what works and what doesn't. And we really want students to diversify their schedule. So have a good mix of GERs, classes that are interesting to them, classes that may lead to a potential major. So you may have a student that is dead set on being a biology major, but we don't want them to take all bio classes because the purpose, especially over this first semester, is to explore.
Okay, so leading up to registration and the start of the fall semester, there are definitely some ways that you could help assist us in supporting your student. We really want your student to take the initiative in completing the steps that they need prior to registration, but there are definitely ways that you can support and help enforce some of the same messages that we give out to students when we meet with them during their pre-registration appointments. So like we've mentioned multiple times, registration is a process, not an event, and there is a chance that your student may not get every single class that they were hoping for. It's really good for them to keep in mind that they have 4 years to take these classes, and anything that they register for in their first semester is going to count towards graduation. So even if they didn't get their ideal class, there should be something that, and I guarantee there is another class or subject that is going to be of interest and will help them progress towards their major requirements or their GER requirements. So making sure that they understand that there is no perfect schedule, we can find ways to make the adjustment. And if they aren't given the opportunity to take a class that they would like in fall, we could definitely help them plan to take that class in spring or the following year, depending on when that course is regularly offered. But there are some questions that you can definitely ask to help engage with your student and in this process. So checking on how they're going to plan to get in touch and get to know their OUE advisor. Have they scheduled their PRA appointment? Have they attended it? Did they have any follow-up questions that they wanted to ask their advisor? Do they plan on trying to drop in during add drop swap after registration closes if they have any questions? So making sure that they understand that we are here as a support system for them and to assist them in this process. Understand there's a lot of steps that are different and a lot of responsibilities that go onto your student that is different than it is in high school. And we're here to assist them in facing those challenges and also being aware of the resources that are available for them. Making sure that they've filled up their shopping cart with courses prior to registration. During their PRAs, they are shown a video of how the registration process works, and we review the shopping cart and the waiting list as well. But it is important that they go ahead and have multiple sections of open classes in their shopping cart prior to noon on the day of registration. And then ask them if they have a plan about how they're going to approach the add drop swap period. Do they know what their first 8 credits are that they're going to be prioritizing? Do they have backups for those 8 credits if something does fill up? That way we can alleviate some of that stress if anything happens during the registration period and help them make sure that they get those full 15 to 17 hours prior to registration closing on the 15th of August.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for participating in our webinar. I'm going to turn it back over to Karina to introduce questions.
Yeah, thank y'all so much. And also, I can't believe I didn't do this at the beginning of the webinar. But to those of you that are tuning in for the first time, my name is Karina Aguilera-Dickens, and I am the Assistant Director for Family Programs in Campus Life at Emory. In our office, I'm in partnership with Sherry's office, host the Family Friday webinars. We are going to do the Q&A now. We have a couple of minutes for questions and answers. And I do see the majority of the answers in the Q&A have been answered by Tyler or Bria or Kimber, which has been incredible. So you should have an answer if you asked a question. We are going to go ahead and answer some of those questions again out loud in case you're listening or in case you want that reinforcement. We're going to try to get through as many of them as we can. If we don't get through them, of course, you can always go through the Q&A during this webinar as well if you're looking for a specific answer to something. For this first question, Sherry, I know you wanted to answer this one. Will a student need to take Emory's language placement test before registering for a language? Do more advanced language courses fulfill the GER requirement, i.e. skipping introductory language and taking intermediate or higher level language? In determining language placement, will Emory look at a combination of AP exam score grades from an international college or university, as well as Emory's placement assessment?
Yeah, awesome. And actually, there were lots of different questions about the AP placement exams and some of the others. So wanted to give this answer for everybody because everybody needs to take a language. So it depends. And that's actually a really good thing for everybody to hear because unlike high school where people are really taking the same classes, in college, things are going to depend and they're going to differ from department to department. And so each of our language departments have different rules about whether or not there's even a placement exam. So depending on what language you're interested in, first go to that academic website department. So I think Victoria mentioned that at the very beginning, explore those departments and look to see if they have a placement exam. If they do, they'll give you the directions for how to log in, how to take it, when it will be scored, and if you have questions about your placement, who to follow up with. Some departments will require a placement even if you have AP. And that's totally fine. So it could be that you got a 5 on AP Spanish, you've been taking Spanish for 10 years, but you'll still take that placement exam to make sure you know where you're starting. Some will make you take a placement exam even if you have no experience. Maybe you've never taken Persian, but you still need to take the placement exam anyway. So each department will have their rules for that placement. We recommend that if you're thinking about starting with your language this fall, that you go ahead and take those placements. You can take more than one department. That's absolutely fine. The departments will score that and then give the recommendation. This is the important part. If a department says you have to start at Spanish 202, you need to start at Spanish 202. You can't go back to Spanish 102. There is an extra few weeks in those first 2 weeks of the semester with add drop swap. So if your student really thinks they're in the wrong course, they can talk to their instructor and figure out what's right. But once those recommendations have been given to your students, that is the starting place. So hopefully I've covered all the things with the language. There was a question about an English placement exam. We do not have English placement exam. So either you'll come in with AP, IB, or previous college credit for your first year writing requirement, or you'll take one of the two classes that are offered at Emory in the fall or the spring. So that's pretty easy with English. And with math, we do have a placement exam on there and some guides of where to start. I put that link from the math department in the chat as well, or to answer that question. So if you have a question about where the starting place is, you can look there. The cool thing about Emory is that we have a quantitative reasoning general education requirement that doesn't all have to be fulfilled with a math course. So before you decide, well, I have to take calculus, not everybody has to take calculus. Some people will take statistics, some people might take logic. There are lots of different classes there. So we really want you thinking about the general education requirement buckets instead of maybe particular courses. So hopefully, Bridget, Victoria, anything else you want to add about the placement exams?
I just wanted to, I think you covered it pretty well, but with the GERs, there are some of the upper level language classes that will meet those intercultural communication GERs. On the course atlas, under the course description, it will indicate which GER certain classes are meeting. So if a student places up into a 300 level Spanish class, they do want to make sure that they're looking to see, is the class going to meet our intercultural communication requirement or not? But there are upper level language courses that will meet that GER requirement.
There are a few other things. Do you have to take, oh, we did that, language things. I'm just trying to think of other things. The other question that came in was just about the number of AP credits. So do we want to jump to that instead of we're good with language? Okay. There were lots of questions about AP, IB credits, the maximum credits you can bring in, and whether or not things can count for placement versus actual credits. So our rule here at Emory is that you can bring in a total of 18 credits outside of Emory. 12 of those can be from AP or IB exams. The other 6 could be from previous college credits. If you took dual enrollment or college credits and they counted for your high school graduation requirements, they cannot be brought into Emory for credit. That's called dual enrollment. You can check all of those requirements on our admissions website. If you took more than 12 AP credits or IB credits and you have more than that, we still recommend you submitting all of your scores to the Office of Admission. If they're qualified scores, they'll go ahead and post the up to 12 credits, so that's 3 exams, and the rest will show up on your transcript as 0 credits. The cool thing about posting on your transcript as 0 credits is that it can still count as a prerequisite or get you ready for that higher level, even if you're not earning the credits. And if you have questions about this to decide what's a good for a credit versus just the placement, that's something you'll want to talk with your OUE advisor about. So a little bit complicated there, but nothing that your OUE advisor can't help you answer. Victoria, Bridget, anything else you want to add about that?
Really well.
Incredible. Yes, a lot of the questions were AP related and language related. I see a lot of them are still being answered. Thank you all so much for answering those questions in the chat. I'm going to start asking some of them out loud. Let's see. Can the parents attend with the student the PRA appointment?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So the PRA is really just intended for students and that assigned OUE advisor they have for their PRA. This is a time for them to ask any questions they may have, get a nice welcoming to Emory, meet some other incoming freshmen, and kind of form some beginning connections. So we really advise parents to just let their student have this experience on their own. And again, that registration webinar we'll have on the 11th will cover a lot of the same stuff. It is essentially another PowerPoint with the materials that we covered in the PRA. So that's a really good time for parents to hear what was covered in the PRA. And also if a student wants a quick refresher again, what was covered in the PRA before registration, they can attend that webinar as well. But we highly encourage parents to let their students have this experience and come to the registration webinar if they want to hear what was covered.
Thank you. So if the student attends the PRA, and they still have a bunch of questions afterwards, maybe they feel like they'd benefit from a second appointment. Can they schedule a second advisement appointment?
Yeah, I can take that one too. So we're gonna have a lot of drop-in options for students during registration, right before registration as well, and then during add drop swap. So if your student has a question about their schedule or a question about registration after their pre-registration advising appointment, make sure they're attending those drop-in hours or those in-person drop-in hours. There's, of course, the virtual ones as well if you're not on campus yet. So those will really help students if they have additional questions prior to coming to campus. But if your student, like Victoria said, has some more in-depth questions that may benefit from a 20 to 30-minute long conversation with their OUE advisor, then that's when we really encourage a student to schedule an appointment on Navigate. But most questions about registration and advising can be answered during those drop-in hours. So I encourage your student to take advantage of those options.
All right, Bridget, I see you want to answer a question live. So it seems like freshmen have many classes predetermined. So how many of their courses do they really need to choose?
Right. I really like this question because I did want to clarify that ECS 101 and Health 100 are the only classes that students have to take this upcoming fall, and they're only 1 credit hour each. And there are plenty of section of both of those two courses. So somebody asked, do I need to sign up for those that first day? No, you don't. I would save those two classes to your second day of registration because there are plenty of spots and plenty of sections available. So that first day of registration, you should be prioritizing classes based off of your interest for those first 8 credits. The other classes, like your GERs for freshman seminar and freshman writing, first year writing, you can take this fall, but you don't have to. They can be in the fall or spring. And there are many different sections and different topics covered in those classes. So they are not all the same. So you're going to want to choose, your student is going to want to choose classes that are interesting to them based off of those courses. So those are the only classes, ECS 101, Health 100, that they have to take in the fall, but really it is all up to them. Those are the only classes, again, that is required for fall.
And I'll add too that during our PRA sessions, we do talk with your students a little bit more about how to create a balanced schedule of, taking a couple courses that count towards GERs, a couple courses that may apply to progression for a major or prerequisites to another program if they're wanting to go into the business school or something like that. And then taking courses that are going to be electives that are going to be for fun. So we do cover that with them as well.
Thank you. Let's see. Oh, is it possible to graduate early?
Sure, I can take this. So yes, it's definitely possible to graduate early. I mean, when our students graduate is really dependent on how many classes they're taking per semester, if they're doing things like summer classes as well, so if you think that we're averaging, around 5 classes for a fall and a spring, if a student takes 3 classes over a summer semester, that definitely gives the opportunity for them to potentially graduate early. We also have students who, while they don't graduate early, they do take a reduced course load in their final semester, just based on how many credits they have left. But we really want to make sure that students are focusing on getting the complete Emory experience and making sure that we are taking advantage of all the opportunities that are here. So maybe instead of just worrying about graduating early, think about building in a semester of education abroad, and so really making sure that we're encouraging the students to take advantage of all the opportunities that Emory has to offer, from research to internships to different student organizations. But yes, short answer, it is possible for a student to graduate early as long as they have met all of those graduation requirements that we discussed: total hour requirements, GERs, and any major or minor requirements that they have for graduation.
Thank you. All right, I'm just looking through some of the questions. There was a bunch of them. Again, you can go into the Q&A to view them if you have a specific question you'd like answered. Can I use one class to cover multiple GER requirements?
Yes, you definitely can. Courses can double count between two GER requirements. They can also count between a GER requirement and a major requirement, depending on what the class is. In the course atlas, under the filters, you will see where you can search by specific GER tags, I guess I would call them. And you can see ones that are going to be designated. For example, it'll say humanities and arts with ethnicity, ETHM. If a student is to select one of these classes, this would be able to count towards the humanities and arts GER along with the race and ethnicity GER. So you can use one class to knock out two GERs or to take care of a major prerequisite or a major requirement. So that is definitely a possibility. Those courses do overlap between like the humanities and arts, social science, continued communication, and race and ethnicity. One thing I highlight with all my students, not even my freshmen coming in, but all my students, is that if you look up a tag that is just the humanities and arts, that is going to pull a completely different list than a humanities and arts tag with ethnicity. So if you really want to be able to explore all the course options we have, I highly recommend students look under multiple of those filters to find courses that are not only work with the scheduling of their actual schedule, but are really of interest to your student or to you.
Thank you. In building my schedule, there seems to be a 10 to 15-minute gap between them. Is this typically enough time to navigate from class to class?
I would say yes. The campus, depending on where the student is coming from, right? It's, it's a mid-sized campus in my opinion. I haven't found an issue being able to walk anywhere in a max of 15 to 20 minutes. Some of the other classes that your students may have, it may be farther apart. A lot of their freshman classes will be in what we call the quad, which is the same area. But they may have some classes that are a bit farther away. And we also have a shuttle service that goes around campus as well. We have different routes to where if your student finds it a little far to walk, they can always take the shuttle, and that shuttle, those different shuttle options run quite regularly. So they shouldn't have an issue getting to and from classes. So I think 15 minutes is plenty of time to get to and from classes.
Absolutely. If students have accommodations through some kind of accommodation, do they get extra support in selecting classes that fall within their accommodations?
So when a student receives accommodations, as part of their accommodations letter, it indicates what type of resources and accommodations are granted towards them. It is up to each student each semester to indicate that they are using their accommodations. And then they would work with an instructor once they're registered for a class to submit those accommodations and get everything in place, whether it's like extended test times, note takers, or something like that. We do have some students who get early registration times that would be listed and indicated in their accommodations letter. It's not for every student who receives accommodations. These are student specific. And so students need to look if they receive early registration time or assistance with that, they would receive it in their accommodations letter, but they also should look into in Opus at their enrollment time, and that'll let them know what time their registration opens, how many credits they can register for at different registration time periods, and what type of support they have like that. For all of our students, whether they have accommodations or not, if they need help figuring out their class schedule based on specific needs, we highly recommend that they make an appointment or meet with their academic advisor early on so we can really help them figure out what is going to be the best option for them based on their individual needs. And this would be more detailed. This wouldn't be something that we'd be covering with students in the PRA. This would be something that we'd recommend that they reach out to their assigned advisor to be able to have a more one-on-one individual question about designing their schedule.
Thank y'all. There are a few more questions in the chat that I know that some of y'all are working on answering in the chat. But if I can ask one more question of y'all out loud, what is some advice that you would give these parents and families to tell their student going into their PRA?
I would recommend that the students come in with an open mind and engage with the session. It makes it a lot more enjoyable for both us as advisors as well as the students when our students are involved and participate during their PRA session. I recommend they come with any questions they may have. We go through a lot of information, but I can't cover every single question that each student may have. So if they have a specific question that they want to make sure that is addressed, that they have those available And then just, yeah, I think being excited about the process, the first step in the process, and kind of going from there, I think is the biggest thing when it comes to the pre-registration appointments.
All right, I did want to mention one other thing. I see a lot of questions in the chat about taking courses pass fail or satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and what that means and what the benefit of that is. One of the questions was, how do you know if a course is pass fail or if it's graded or if you have the option to choose? So when you're looking on the course atlas under the grading, on the grading basis line, it tells you if it's student option, then the student can choose to take it graded or pass fail. If it is satisfactory or unsatisfactory, pass fail, it will just say that. And if it's graded for a letter grade, it will just say that if that's the only option. So there's those three options. Some classes like ECS 101 are just pass fail, and some classes are just graded. For your student, if they have the option to choose, they're likely going to take most of their classes graded. Graded classes can count for GERs, they can count for major and minor requirements, where taking classes pass fail or SU, they cannot count for GERs, and they generally do not count for major or minor requirements. So the benefit of taking courses SU, if a student is just taking a course of interest, that's not going to count towards a GER or a major requirement, and they just want the credit but don't want the grade to be calculated into their GPA, they can take it pass fail and it won't impact their GPA. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that for those who asked.
Thank y'all so much to everybody supporting this webinar today. Thank you to Bridget and Victoria, Kimber, Tyler, and Bria for taking their time to speak with our parents and families and some students about academic advising. We are going to spend the last 5 minutes wrapping up and to talk about some next steps. So I'm going to turn it over to Sherry to talk about the to-do list.
Thanks, Karina. And thanks so much, Victoria and Bridget. It's like amazing. Thank you. We are now midway through July, and some really exciting things are happening next week, like housing assignments. But that also means that we're halfway through our to-do list. And so we'd really love it if families, if you're still on here, this is a great opportunity to break out that to-do list with your student and make sure that you are hitting all the marks. We talked a lot today about attending the pre-registration advising appointment. We still have about 300 students who have not yet made their appointments. So that's good. It means that 1,100 have, but 300 still don't. Other things like submitting the AP and IB scores are really important. Creating guest access, this for parents and families is really important because your students get to determine what you can see, whether you can see their schedules, whether you can pay their bills, and that all happens through guest access. So have that conversation now. And then some other things coming up about their handshake accounts and student financial agreements are all there for July. The big things that have already passed, July 1 was the deadline, include the Emory card, uploading the photo. We're still missing a few hundred of those. The student profile, that tells us a lot of great information about our students that we then share with departments across the university, and immunizations. So if those are outstanding with that June 1 or July 1 deadline, those should be the priority before jumping into the rest of the July to-do items.
Thank you, Sherry. All right, so coming up next on the Family Friday webinar series. So we have webinars the rest of July, or the Fridays for the rest of July. On July 19th, so next week, we are hearing from housing, dining, and residence life. And the following week, July 26th, is movement and orientation, which is a really, really important one. So we are inviting your students to come as well. Just a reminder that you do have to register per webinar. So if you want to attend these both, you have to go into family.emory.edu, go to the events tab and register for these webinars, which I hope that you do. As always, a recording of the webinar will be posted to YouTube and posted to the website following the conclusion of the webinar. So if you have a question that you know was answered in the webinar, but you don't quite remember what the answer was, you can always go back and do these again. And if you have any questions following the conclusion of this webinar, you can always email me. My email is family@emory.edu. If I can't answer it myself, I will refer to the person that can answer it, and I will make sure you get the answer that you need. But that is the hour, and that is all that we have today for y'all. So thank you so much again to our presenters and to everyone who attended, and we will see you next week.